Entrepreneurially Thinking is a presentation of BioSTL and CET, Center for Emerging Technologies, with RareGem Productions, changing the way you view new ventures, including you on the pathway to success with your business in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. Here's your hosts, Cheryl and Christy. Now let's get thinking entrepreneurially.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurially Thinking podcast. Our goal is to invigorate your entrepreneurial mindset and build pathways for business success in the St. Louis marketplace and beyond. I'm Christy Maxfield, Director of Entrepreneur Development Services at the Center for Emerging Technologies.
And I am Dr. Cheryl Watkins-Moore, the Director for Bioscience and Entrepreneurial Inclusion with BioSTL.
You know, thank goodness our titles don't get much longer because...
Well, yeah, if we get any longer names, titles, or anything else, we're going to be falling all
everything's going to have to be turned into an acronym, and then nobody will know who we are. And thank you all for coming back. So we're back, you're back, and if you're new to the podcast, we're really glad you joined us. So we are all about stepping outside of our comfort zone.
And we do it all the time.
And, you know, originally the podcast was way outside our comfort zone.
Yes.
It's becoming more and more on the inside, so we're going to have to find something else to get crazy about. But in the meantime, we encourage you to take this time with us to think about your goals, your business opportunities, and any other opportunities you may be seeing in completely new ways. We want to remove any limitations you might have about how you think about small business, working for yourself, or being entrepreneurial right where you are. So stay connected with us and the rest of the Entrepreneurially Thinking community on all of your favorite streaming platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, or visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com, #ETHINKSTL.
Absolutely. Well, today, if you guys are interested in learning more about the construction and design industry, we have two very accomplished design and construction entrepreneurs with us. Todd Weaver, who represents TW Constructors, and Admo Ogun, who's with Atelier 3 Design. We're going to be talking to them today and learning more about how they've made such tremendous impact while creating great opportunities with their organizations. They are as committed to community as they are to their businesses. Each one of these CEOs is changing the landscape of the industry and building pathways for folks who are in the underrepresented populations, as well as others within their own design. Stay listening. We'll be back in a minute.
Now here's Make It Happen with Keith Sales Pro.
According to Peter Handel, the CEO of Dale Carnegie Training Institute, here are 5 essential rules for great presentations. Number 1, be yourself. If you pose as somebody you're not, your audience will know you're insecure and therefore disbelieve whatever you're saying. 2, tell stories. The purpose of a presentation is not to convey information. You can do that with a data sheet. The purpose of a presentation is to show how the information has meaning for what you're doing. Number 3, practice. The very best public speakers make it seem as though the ideals are so new and original that the speaker is slightly surprised at what he or she is saying. 4, socialize. Audiences consist of individuals. Always arrive early and try to get to know some of the individuals in your audience that you're speaking to. And number 5, brevity. For every presentation that wrapped up too early, there are 1,000 that have gone on way too long. Today, remember, it can happen. It will happen. And together, we will make it happen.
Follow Keith Sales Pro on Facebook or Twitter at Keith Sales Pro, or visit his website at keithsalespro.com.
It can happen. It will happen. And together, we will make it happen.
My name is Admo Ogun. I'm with Atelier 3 Design. Entrepreneurial thinking to me means the ability to be able to understand what services are needed, but be able to provide that service in an economical fashion, but also understanding that you build relationships. And once you build relationships, you're there in the community.
So thank you, Todd and Admo, for joining us. We really are excited to learn more about your stories and how you've built your businesses and really where you see yourself within the St. Louis region as well as the nation in terms of building top-notch companies that provide not only amazing jobs and opportunities, but are giving back to the community. So Todd, would you start us off a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah.
Thank you, Christy and Dr. Cheryl. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's Cheryl.
Dr. Cheryl, I love.
That's way.
Let's call her Dr. Cheryl.
Dr. Cheryl.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to be here. My story is kind of a unique story in the construction business. People, one of my friends referred to my life as the movie The Blind Side. As I started out basically on a dare when I was 11 years old in my neighborhood in Hazelwood, Missouri.
So you are a homegrown.
Homegrown.
Okay.
Up there where it was McDonnell Douglas before Boeing took it over.
Okay.
But on a dare, one of my friends asked me who would go up and ask this company for a job. And at that time, I was raised by a single parent. My only sibling at home was my younger brother. And it was a struggle in the family. We had, it was struggling for us having running water, food on the table, electricity. So I had to be the breadwinner of the family at age 11. So went up to this business. It was Clayco Constructors at that time. They had just opened up their office in our neighborhood. They were in a trailer. They were renovating a building on my street. And walked up, knocked on the door, and it was Bob Clark. And kind of told him my story and the reason why I was up here. And he saw something in me and said, wow, this kid is aggressive to come up and ask for a job at 11 years old.
Yeah, no kidding.
And you got the kahunas to do that.
It was. It was. But from my background, I didn't really have no other choice.
Right.
My mother needed help. And so Bob saw that opportunity, and what he did, he had his guys in his office, setting out trash, and I was cutting the weeds, mowing the lawn when I come from school. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I think right around 13, 14 years old, Bob kind of broke the child labor laws because I wasn't making enough money then. So what he wanted to do is he got me a laborer's card. So I got a laborer's card, and I started doing – he had his job sites, guys setting up stuff on the job sites for me to go by and clean up to make a little bit more money. And it was well-deserved and well-wanted, the money. Yeah.
And clearly well-earned. That's not light work.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, it wasn't light work. And but I had to have my homework done first, and he'd come and pick me up and take me to the job sites. So right around, I would say, 15, 16 years old, Bob saw something in me in those from 11 to 14, 15, that he wanted to sit down and meet with my mother. She's no longer living now, but
she's looking over you.
Yeah, she's definitely looking over you.
Absolutely.
I got a lot from her.
Yep.
But just sit down and talk to her about wanting to take a more part of my life, being a father figure, because in the neighborhood I was in, it was a low-income neighborhood and not a lot of opportunities there, and there was a lot of stuff that I could have went the wrong direction.
Yeah, sure.
And had a long conversation with my mother, and she was open for it, just to see her son have an opportunity to get out of the neighborhood. So at that point, Bob and I became not more of an employee boss, but more of a mentorship role at the age of 15, 16.
Wow.
Really doing that for several years, and I went to his house and on the weekends and met his wife, Ellen, who also passed away, who was like my mother. And both my mothers passed away in 2010, which was kind of hard for me. I'll get to that story later. But as things progressed, we became very close to the point where his kids, Sean and Katie and Emily, are like my siblings. And, they look up to me. I respect them. I do anything for them, just like they my own brother and sister. And so I did that for a while. So then I got my college degree. I didn't go back to work for Clayco because he wanted me to get out on my own and kind of
do something.
So my own seed, get out and make a name for myself. So I went to work for EQ International as their marketing director. Went there for about a year.
Is that in the construction industry?
It's in the construction industry. Okay. They were a structural engineering design firm.
Okay.
I worked for them for about a year. There was kind of a partnership with that because they wanted to work for Clayco. So of course they hired me to think, well, that's Bob Clark's adopted son. There's a connection there.
Right.
For a year, then I went to work for EQ International for a year. Same structural engineer, did their marketing.
Okay.
And so I was away from Clayco for about 2 years. So in the fall of '99, I came back. I got married. And I wasn't at home no more than a couple of weeks. Bob goes, well, you know what? We got to ship you out. So I went to New York for 7 months.
One of my
2 weeks
favorites.
after I got married. I'm like, okay, this
Nice
is
timing.
Yeah, nice timing. But my wife, she got to come visit me every other week in upstate New York.
Oh, you lived there for a while.
7 months. 7
wow.
months in upstate New York. We built, at that time, it was one of Clayco's largest projects. It was the Old Navy Gap distribution facility.
And what was your role on the project?
Assistant project engineer and
Okay.
project manager.
Great.
Did that for a couple of years. Then came back. Then my role at Clayco was a diversity coordinator, because what we found out is that Clayco did a lot of private work.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to go out and start getting more people in the community engaged with Clayco, because what we heard, there was a lot of minority firms that never had an opportunity in the private sector. So I only had to report to one person, which was Bob Clark. I had to go no one else to talk to about getting someone in the office to meet with the project managers, the estimators, and I will tell you, I had some success, but I also had some failures in that process, and that's what made me, down the road say, okay, you know what, I could do this.
Yep.
I could go after this business. And like Bob, his father, he gave him, all the kids got a stipend to start out their business. So I had a loan from Bob for $150,000. I had a 3-year note to pay him back. He was worse than a bank. Every Sunday dinner, you make any money? You make any
Admo's
money?
chuckling about that, so I'm sure we're going to get his opinion about bank loans compared to family loans in just a moment
It was brutal. Every Sunday dinner, you make any money? You make any money? I mean, I paid him back in 6 months.
Wow.
Well,
So you made some money.
I was gonna say,
made
keeps
money.
You
And was that
accountable.
with your current venture?
No, it was at that time it was Legacy Building Group.
Okay. Because I do remember, I remember
Yeah, it was Legacy Building Group. And to fast forward the story, basically, Legacy, you have trials and tribulations in your business, and things happen. I had a great partner, and we separated. We departed. We had different philosophies and
that's
and
okay.
different visions.
That's
and
okay.
basically, per the advice of my legal counsel, basically start up another business, TW Constructors, and we kept the same people, but we parted ways, and that kind of started TW Constructors.
That's awesome.
You said a couple of things that are very interesting. Is that it takes a village, and how you started your career at 11 years old, having the
Chutzpah would be the Yiddish.
chutzpah or the cojones to say, I'm
Yes.
going up here, has led, and I believe in serendipitous collisions, as we always talk
Well,
about.
yeah.
That was your serendipitous
Being at the right place at the right
collision.
time can't
I'll
be
tell you what,
underestimated.
just to have that, the things that you didn't have, to make you be the way. I mean, not having electricity, not having water. I mean, that was my encouragement. That was my. I had to help my mother out.
Yeah.
And do whatever it takes.
Absolutely.
So, Admo, what motivated you to pursue being your own boss, owning your own business?
My dad always said something to me when I was a kid growing up, that everybody you come into contact with, there's a reason for it.
Yes.
You might just meet someone on the plane, and the moment you strike a conversation or exchange numbers, there's always a reason. You might not find out a week after, a month after, a year after. It could take a decade, But growing up as a kid, my parents originally were from Nigeria, and they had immigrated to the United Kingdom to study and work. My father, who happened to be an architect, kind of inspired me as a kid just to follow in the direction of architecture and design. During college, I actually came to the United States for an
Undergrad here?
I did undergrad
in the States?
No, in the United Kingdom.
Oh, in the UK.
But I did an exchange program. It was a program with Cornell University where you had to come over to the United States, British University, North America camp, and work. When I came to the United States on the exchange program, it was really interesting to see the contrast between the United Kingdom and the United States.
I was going to say, was this your first time here in the States when you came over?
Yeah, in college. And it was, I was just, the vast landscape was breathtaking.
Yeah.
I'd spent, a few weeks in New York City doing the orientation, then went all the way to California, San Francisco, where I got a job and worked all summer.
What'd you do?
Did you work in construction?
No, I actually couldn't find, in the 90s then it was just, we're a long way from the 90s, the way people think, the way things were. And so,
What was your undergraduate focus then?
Architecture.
Okay.
In Greenwich University,
Okay.
United Kingdom. So, I decided to drive back from San Francisco to the Midwest, which I did had a cousin that lived in St. Louis. That was how I got it in St. Louis. Yes.
Okay.
So I drove back, and driving through California, Arizona, New Mexico, you name it, all the way to Kansas. There's so much diversity in terms of the landscape. It was just different and vast landscape that I fell in love with the country. So I went back to the UK, finished my studies, then decided, I would come back again sometime to the United States, which I did after college. And I thought I would work for a year and go back. Well, it's 20
You're
years.
here.
I'm still here at 20
You
years.
might be
Famous last
going back,
words.
but you're going back to visit.
Yeah.
Right.
So, along, coming back here in 96, I guess, 97, I worked with a couple of large firms and got a job with another firm. And, again, it's a whole story of meeting people but not knowing how you're going to connect with them. Todd and I are connected in ways that are not direct. But Todd mentioned a project, Gap Old Navy in Fishkill, New York. I was working in the firm that did that project. And even though Todd and I were not seeing each other daily, I was actually working on that project in the office. But I'd gotten to know Bob through doing designs in the office. We did, there was a firm, Lucent Technology, which we did something in Miramar, Florida. And, Bob was passionate and excited about the designs and the speed at which things could get out.
So how did you start your business?
2008, the economy was just basically
Tanking.
Bad.
crippled. And
Yes.
and I was working with a large firm, and they were shedding staff. And at some point, I just said to myself, I say, you know what? When you see a firm getting that anemic in terms of their sustainability, you never can tell what's going to happen next. So there were opportunities out there to move around and go do other stuff or work with other firms. But some of the firms that I knew too were not very sustainable at that point. I decided that the contacts that I had and some other folks that I knew in the industry, it was time to, start something small.
Time to move out on your own.
Yeah. So I think it was 2010 that I started Atelier 3 Design with a couple of other folks, and just kind of worked within the St. Louis community, trying to not only engage but create something.
But you know what's interesting around that same time period, because the economy was tanking, I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs recognized, even though they were sitting in corporate settings, they were entrepreneurs.
Everybody has an amount of skill set. Sometimes you don't tap into it, sometimes you do tap into it. But I think the best way to know how you can evolve within whatever skill sets you have is to learn from whatever mistakes you make, move on from it, know that you've made that mistake and find a way to correct it.
Learn something from it.
Yeah.
So we're going to come back in just a second and talk about sort of how your journeys have paralleled each other, as well as other things you've learned along the way.
And how you're giving back. That strong message that you both have mentioned, you both have had serendipitous collisions, but what are you doing and how your impact is on the community?
We all have stress, and it affects each of us differently. NFL Super Bowl champion Roland Williams.
Me coming from poverty saying I want to go to the NFL and make millions of dollars. You know what I mean? It didn't even sound right to a lot of people. I had to have unbreakable belief that was possible. You have to be courageous mentally, not just physically. Mentally, to go and execute what it's going to take to get it done.
Alive and Well is attainable for all of us.
The most important one of all. It's called intentional teamwork, y'all. Teamwork makes the dream work. Teamwork is how families work. Teamwork is how community works. Whenever we get that situation where we think we're by ourselves, when we're isolated, there's no hope and there's no one that can help you, we got to reach out to people who care. We got to keep going until we find connection points, till we find solutions. We cannot quit. We cannot pack it up. We got to reach out and get teamwork.
Take the time to care for yourself and thrive, because when you feel better, you'll do better. You'll see. Visit aliveandwellstl.com to learn more.
Todd Weaver, CEO of TW Constructors. For me, entrepreneur is just, managing people, taking risk, looking for that vision to go out on your own and in that process to make money.
So you both have really told us how your stories have evolved, which is always really important for people to know because, it's the story of the overnight success that took 20 years, right? What seems to others to have been really effortless on the outside doesn't necessarily always reveal how challenging things were in the reality, right? But also what I heard was inspiration from really strong father figures in your life. Could you tell us a little bit more about just sort of when you decided to make that leap and go from working for someone to working for yourself? Sort of, Todd's got a bright smile and he's like, oh, where do I begin?
Yeah.
So Todd, where do you begin? There's that day, despite all the inspiration, the support, the role models, the encouragement, the
working for your father,
which I've done. So I feel you.
Yeah. I love him to death.
But
it was torture.
But
Sunday evenings
Yeah,
were
it was torture.
So for Admo, it was about, the economy changed and the opportunity presented itself, and it was, take the leap or not take the leap. For you, was it, whoa, it's time to stop working for Dad?
It was that, but it was also working at Clayco. I met a lot of people in the business, in the industry, and not just in the construction, but, legal, accounting, customers. That inspired me to take a leap of faith for myself because I had the background, I had the resources, and like I said before, I met individual companies that there's certain things that I had access to that most firms didn't have access to,
right?
And so I had to take that as my advantage. One of the things that was really a eye opener for my business moving forward was the individual I met with Bob. Kind of just starting out was Dave Stewart, the chairman of Worldwide Technology. Dave wanted to meet with me because he kind of heard of my story with Bob, really helping out a young African-American kid in the community.
You were an entrepreneur at 11.
Actually, there's a funny story with that. We had a lady in the neighborhood. She created some concoction of hair shampoo. So she went around and asked kids to help her sell this product.
And you did.
I was her number one salesperson. And we went to the neighborhoods. I was doing that at 10, 11 years old.
So if there's anybody in Hazelwood with no hair,
I was going to say.
No, the neighborhood's gone, so I don't know if anybody's bald now, so I don't know.
Well, you can't
but that was kind of my first selling deal.
There you go.
But to meet an individual like Dave, because what Bob wanted to do is that, with him being raised by a white individual, for his perspective, he was like, well, you need to start meeting people of your color so you can get a different perspective of how the world really is, because you're being introduced to a lot of things. I've been around the world, things that I would never even imagine coming from my neighborhood,
right?
And giving me access to things. But to meet individuals that are up and coming at that time, Dave Stewart, Arnold Donald, the Bob person we wanted me to meet with, and I met with Dave. It's been 20 years. I met Dave, and we hit it off. But I never pestered Dave. I never followed up with Dave because when I met Dave, Dave was probably Worldwide Technology was $800 million company.
Yeah.
This year they're going to do $10 billion.
Right. Yeah, but still, $800 million, nothing to sneeze at.
It's nothing to sneeze at, but where he's gone and where for in his business, to meet him and to have some of the same core values, philosophies, faith, vision, tenacity, trust, those things that are cornerstone of my business. So to meet him 20 years ago and to come full circle to start doing all their work in the last 8 years. I've done everything for Worldwide Technology. I've built all their product. We're actually doing a 7-story office building right now for them at 270 and Page.
Wow.
So it's full circle with me with Bob and the people that I met.
Again, when you meet someone for the first time, you never know where you're going to meet them again. So my dad says, put up your best behavior. When you meet someone, interact with them. You might come back and meet them again.
You never know where that's going to take you,
that's
right?
a very good story as far as Todd is concerned, and with David, and now 20 years later, building projects for them. Over the years, my inspiration has not only come from my father, but also people who are successful. When I see people who are successful, I want to try and do the same and be able to connect with other people so I can also inspire people. When Atelier 3 Design started, one of the places we decided to make our home base was the city of Wellston. And the city of Wellston at that point, until now, it's been underserved. But perception is reality. Nothing is wasted until wasted. So if I perceive something as waste, then it's going to be waste. But if I see something and say, there's a potential here, then it just takes for me to show anybody that there is that potential or there is something there.
So choosing the VentureWorks facility in Wellston was very purposeful.
It was intentional. It could have gone anywhere else, but over the years being in Wellston, the firm itself, we've had collaborations with the city of Wellston and other neighborhood organizations to where we'd have town hall events and just speak to people. And we're here to understand what your issues are and try to help you solve those issues. As designers or urban designers, if you look at it from that perspective, you have to be able to relate to people.
It's more than just the business.
The environment.
Right.
And how people and the environment are connected to buildings, because that's all we do.
And I think what's so important, what you just said, is that you guys are both in and of the community. So having people see that you guys have built,
see your success.
Exactly.
Literally in the buildings that you build.
It's the whole thing with, I came out of medicine, the big thing was see one, do one, teach one, so it's the whole thing what you guys are doing. People can see what you're doing. You're learning, they're learning that. And then being able to help people or do for themselves. I mean, what you guys had, that support too. What are you guys doing in the community? How are you? Because I want to get to that part. I know you guys do a lot of wonderful things in the community. Talk to us about what you guys are doing.
I think for us to make an impact, you got to start from somewhere, and it doesn't matter how much I do personally or Todd or people in our positions do. It has to be a collective effort to be able to make a real impact.
Sure.
There are a lot of opportunities in St. Louis and beyond St. Louis, but every journey, they say, begins with a single step. So the impact we're making when we try in our design efforts or in construction to have either minorities or people who are less fortunate be part of the process. However we do it now, sometimes we want to be able to do more than what we've able to do. But in construction, sometimes it depends on who the end user is or who the investors, the owners are. And in some situations when there's government funds involved, there might be stipulations of how you can have that involvement.
Well, I think that what's really even more key is that, we live in a STEM-focused economy. We always talk about how STEM is a huge opportunity for a lot of underrepresented populations. And I think being in construction, it is a STEM, to me, a very STEM-focused industry. And one of the things that we see from a BioSTL perspective, and we've heard about this at the state of the state for St. Louis, is that we don't have enough people to fill STEM jobs now nor in the future.
Sure.
So we're always looking at pipeline. How do we get kids interested into this type of industry, and also the opportunities like you guys have here in construction? Are you doing any work with youth programming or pipeline opportunities to have kids understand what is construction, what are the opportunities,
design,
architecture?
engineering,
Absolutely.
Right,
all of it.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of that right now. Because what happened when I was in high school, they had the workshops and the automotive and all that in the high schools. Well, they don't have any of that anymore.
Right.
So we're trying to reach back down to the middle school kids to get them attracted to the business.
How are you doing that?
Well, we're going to trade shows. We're going to so Clayco started a program called CCDI. Is Contractor Controlled Development Initiative, where they're actually going to high schools and getting kids at ninth grade, 10th grade, and introducing them to the construction industry. And we're all involved in helping them fund this program. And it's our firm, it's mechanical firms, it's electrical firms, it's developers, it's architects, all have a stake in this.
Right.
Because if we can't look for the next generation, this industry is going to die.
Right. So it's a combination of those near-term decisions, like Admo was talking about, like what can we do today to engage the firms that exist today in the work that we're doing, but also how do we groom the potential talent of the future?
And what we're doing, it's kind of unique because I have a mechanical business as well, and our business is we're a design, build, engineering, mechanical firm. Well, if you look at all the firms in St. Louis, majority or minority, as far as mechanical, you might find 5 to 10 African Americans and women combined in all these firms. So I'm one of 2 in St. Louis. My goal is to try to open opportunities for women and young minorities in the mechanical field. And it's engineering.
Are you talking about, I was going to say, what
it's engineering, it's design build, and we do a lot of technical stuff in the mechanical world as far as 3D, 4D modeling, engineering design. So it's a very technical business. And most people think construction is dirty, but it's not.
I was just at a conference over across the pond, and across the pond means the little river here that we have.
You did actually go over to Europe, so I'm glad you clarified. So you're talking about Illinois?
Here, right.
Okay.
And with SIUE, and what they were talking about is the bioeconomy over there and trade jobs. How there's not a lot of folks going into the trades, and these are great jobs. What we're talking about, what you just talked about, with in construction. And you don't have people focusing on that, and those are well paid. They're great paying jobs. And I was there, and a hiring manager at Phillips 66 said, we can't find enough minorities and women to go into these jobs because they think they're dirty jobs. They don't want to do it. But I think that people don't understand they're not dirty jobs. They're well paid jobs, and they engage STEM opportunities.
Yep. Science, technology, engineering, math. It's all there. You hit the nail around the head. We will have a shortage, especially in the workforce.
Yes.
And with all the work that's going on in St. Louis right now, they're saying roughly $4 to $4.5 billion of construction over the next 6 to 7 years. We're going to have a shortfall in the 2018, 2019, when all the work starts to go. And there's a huge surplus of young African-American men and women in the inner city area that we have to tap into, and we better do a better job at trying to get them into the business.
Absolutely.
So if I'm an 11-year-old in North St. Louis who's looking for that opportunity, a lot's changed since you knocked on the construction door, the trailer door.
Yeah.
What's the equivalent of the trailer door today when young people are saying, like, where do I, like, I've got the energy, I've got the mom, my mom needs as much help as your mom needed. My dad is as inspiring as your dad is, and I'm ready to go.
And I got the moxie.
Yeah.
Where do I go?
That's the word we've been looking for. I got the moxie. Where do I go? So where do these kids go? How do they find you guys? How do they find these opportunities? How do they raise their hand
I think the key word in STEM is education. Education is something that once you set your mind on it, you can only be better at what you do, and it's knowledge filled. So if you're 11 years old and you're thinking, you just got to have an inquisitive mind. So if you see a building going up and it inspires you, or you see mechanical duct somewhere and you're like, how does that work? Well, we have resources today that maybe Todd and I didn't have when we were younger growing up. One of those resources is called Google.
Right.
I mean, if you Google if you Google how a mechanical system works, that alone in itself gives you a crash program that you don't have to pay for, or how do buildings come together. So there's a lot of resources out there, and I think as entrepreneurs and as people in the industry, we just got to keep doing what we do to connect that gap, whether it's through shadowing people or having some kind of strategic partnership with larger firms and institutions to just understand what the end goal is and how do we connect the dots to achieve those goals. Todd mentioned something that's pretty significant. The next couple of years, there'll be a shortfall based on the projections of construction coming to our region. In order to be proactive, we got to understand what the demand is and how do we get to that demand. So in this scenario, we already know how much construction is coming here.
Right.
So we got to fill that gap. And the way to fill the gap is not to be reactive by having people in St. Louis not be adapted not for that technology, but finding ways to educate them more and have after-work type seminars and, educational type meetings where they could learn more and grow themselves and understand that they could actually go out on their own and provide a service.
Todd, would you add anything to that? Because it sounds like the first way I raise my hand is by showing that I'm committed to my own self-growth and education.
Well, I would just say you're right. It's different when I ask, but mentors is huge. We have to do a better job as owners of our businesses It's because what's given is much is required. So that's my ultimate goal, is to be a better human being and a better person, a better community person in our society, just to make sure that I'm reaching back and I'm doing what was given to me. Because I'm very blessed, very blessed. Just know my life from 11 years old to where I am now. I cannot imagine the places I've been, the things I've done. Where I grew up from, I keep pinching myself every day, and I try to make sure my kids know that as well.
Sure.
I don't ever want them to experience what I experienced ever.
Right.
So I'm going to work tirelessly to make sure they never go without.
What you've touched upon, this need to give back and this need to also make sure that not only do we want our children to do well, but we want them to appreciate how different their lives might be from those of others. With
you guys impacting our communities, that's what I think is so important to the St. Louis region. And we really thank you for those efforts, because without that, like you're talking about, how is our next generation going to be able to flourish? And we want all of our kids to be able to flourish.
So what I hear is that we've got two really not only talented entrepreneurs who are running very successful businesses, but men who are really looking at
committed.
How else can we be a part of all the opportunities that are coming to be here in St. Louis. So while none of us have the answers, I think we've got a lot of willing souls to be part of that conversation. So if you're listening and you want to be part of that conversation too, I'd say, take heart in the fact that is on the radar screen for the region, and that there are opportunities. And so whether it's with Todd and Admo or me and Cheryl or whoever else you're connecting with in the community, that there's real opportunity to be had here. And moxie, chutzpah, cojones, whatever you want to call it, grab yours and
make it work.
And make it work. So as always, we come to the end of our time way too soon. Just as soon as we start to get going, it's time to wrap up. But I want to thank you both for taking time out of your day and your businesses and the opportunities that you have to be other places, to be here with us, to share your story and
share it with our listeners.
The dialogue to really think about and hopefully act on.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Changing the way you view new ventures, igniting your thinking about entrepreneurship. It's entrepreneurially thinking. Get connected and discover more. Visit our website for show notes, resources, information about our guests, upcoming events, and of course, all your favorite episodes. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them for us in the comment sections, and be sure to leave us a 5-star rating on iTunes. The best way to show love is to share. Let everybody know that you're thinking entrepreneurially. So visit our website, entrepreneuriallythinking.com. #ETHINKSTL. Entrepreneurially Thinking is another positive production of RareGem Productions. Thanks for listening.